whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today. But if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. This is the hottest live stream on Tuesdays. We have a double header for you today. Today, of course, we're going to be interviewing and speaking with our veteran journalist Albert Lanier Jr. Al is on there. How you doing, Al?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Everything's good in the Aloha State.
I assume.
You assume.
I can't speak for the state. I can only speak for me.
Okay. We got a few people in the chat. We have Danielle. What's up, Danielle? She says, it's too hot down here in Lafourche Parish. Yes, I'm from where? That's like Thibodeau area. It's hot outside too here in New Orleans. I mean, for a second, I thought I saw Satan at the snowball stand. So it is not cold. It is not cool at all right now. But I was shouting you out because, you know, I saw one of the Olympics just added the surfing competition, and the American.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, they added it. It was supposed to debut
the Olympics. Yeah, I haven't seen the Olympics. And to be on the record. Yeah.
Most people have it.
And to be on the record, right. And to be on the record, I think the Olympics should have been canceled because of the pandemic. But clearly the fine Olympic officials, not only in Tokyo, but with the International Olympic Committee, have no regard for anything, I would say, on the matter. So.
Yeah, well, I think that too. I certainly don't in other matters beyond that as well, because I saw, and I'll talk about that in the live stream later today, but Simone Biles backed out during the event. You know, she was picked to be a gold medalist. Naomi Osaka, I saw she lost. The Olympics haven't been that good so far for the Americans, but I think with Simone, she got fed up with the judges and just the scrutiny behind all of that. So I'm foregoing everybody. Let me put myself on camera first. There we go. I'm foregoing with Gotta Get On Up just because I don't feel like playing my music and then noticing I get a copyright strike every time. So what I'll just like to do is tell everyone that you can go check out the single on iTunes, on Spotify, and Apple. Gotta Get On Up, and go ahead and download that, play it, stream it. You know, if you're having parties and so forth, go ahead and play it. It's very good. You've all heard it. Alice heard it as well. So we are going to be talking about today a special topic, something that we want to do. Oh, I got to take care of some other business as well. You can also join the Patreon for exclusive content. That way, if YouTube ever takes any of my videos off, I'll just go ahead and upload them to the Patreon as well. And you can see the hyperlink at the bottom. If you'd like to advertise, as you saw our video, we do advertising. You can hit me up in an email for rates. My email is gavin.grich1@gmail.com. And also, we ask that you donate to the channel. You know, we don't, while my channel was officially monetized this past week, which is some good news, it's good if you can contribute specifically to either the PayPal or to the Cash App, because YouTube does take a bulk of some of the monies that you make in the comment, you know, when it's in the super chat. But at either rate, I'm thankful for all of my subscribers. We have over 1,000 subscribers and counting. We hope to get to 5,000 as soon as possible. Things are opening up. So, Al, let us get into our secret sauce for today, which is a topic is about secret societies. Now, I'm sure many people have heard of groups like Skull and Bones. You've heard of the Freemasons. You've heard of, you know, the Scottish Rite. I know that there are the Black Freemasons, the Prince Hall Masons. But even outside of that, I've heard of Bohemian Grove. I've heard of the Bilderbergs. We've heard of the International Monetary Fund. A whole bunch of groups, and we're going to be discussing that today. So, if
I don't
channel,
think the IMF is a secret society.
I'm sorry.
I don't think the IMF would be. I don't think the IMF would be considered a secret society. But go on.
Well, not a secret society, but they have been a part of what has been the New World Order. People have talked about. I've heard that discussed. You know, the United Nations, which is not a secret society in and of itself. They've been a part of that. So well, let me be careful with my words then. But I've heard that they've been associated with the New World Order.
After all, this is YouTube, so
allegedly.
be careful.
Oh yeah, I know already what I know about it, because I've been suspended multiple times for different stuff. They can't even tell me what.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh really?
I've been. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
I had my channel suspended for a week. We had it. When I did my last live stream with you on here, when we had Sean and we had Andrew, they took it down because of a copyright issue, and it wasn't
right.
really.
It was the ad from the for the election for DA, I believe, right?
Right, and which would be fair use anyway with showing it, because we were doing commentary. But what it was that Brad TV, he put a copyright on it, even though he didn't even create the ad. And what happened was that they took the whole video down, and of course I'm appealing it, because frankly, it was, first off, if you're playing that ad was up 6 years before his interview with Tom Mesereau. He incorporated that ad in his video with Tom Mesereau. So when I saw what the copyrighted issue was, or the content that they claimed, I saw that, I said, oh, that's this bastard. So excuse my French, but I was I was upset about that. And but I've had that happen to me. I've had my other channel suspended for medical misinformation. They gave me strikes for hate speech and so forth, which I don't get, but you know, okay. So that's why a lot of people are, especially people in new black media, are switching over to other media websites where we can post our content. Like Patreon is one way that people can support. So that's just something I'm doing. So, but let us get to our topic at hand, Al. And I keep getting copyright strikes from my own song too. That's the one thing.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that. Normally, because I've been in another sector, which I won't reveal at this point, though people could probably, if they followed me or they're aware of me on YouTube, they probably know what I'm talking about. And the whole copyright strikes has been actually in that sector been used as a form of warfare against other channels. There are people that have lobbed copyright strikes at other channels in order to get them off.
And
so
that's
I've
what
seen
Vlad
it primarily as a form of warfare. Because my understanding of YouTube is if you get like 3 copyright strikes, then your channel can be eliminated.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. You get 3.
So
well, it's not
I've
just
seen it.
copyright strike. It's also warnings on your content. You know, if you do things, if you excite hate speech, if you share copyright, if you give medical misinformation, especially if you're talking about the vaccine. You know, I'll just say it with. I'm being careful with it, but if you talk about COVID vaccine,
I'll just use the term the pandemic.
Our pandemic.
That's
Yeah.
the term.
Well, I'm not talking specifically about it. I'm just talking about the repercussions. So, yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying in general, like, I'm like, in regards to it, people who aren't aware of it watching this have to understand that if you're a content creator, and this is stuff I learned being in this other sector or being around this other sector because I wasn't a content creator. But what I learned was that things are at a point in YouTube where there are things that you can't say. There are what you would probably, you could call them trigger words or phrases that will get you in trouble with YouTube. You have to understand that people who think that YouTube will allow every form of speech imaginable are fooling themselves. That's never been the case in any form of media, not that I've worked in or that I've even been on. And it's no different online. People who thought the internet was going to be total free speech, you could say what you want, you're in for a rude awakening, folks, because things have already changed and they're going to continue to change. So as they used to say on a show I used to love when I was a kid, Hill Street Blues, let's be careful out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
like I said, I'm serious, folks.
Well, that's because
you're on YouTube. Let's be careful out there.
But let's just say certain companies have interest in the YouTube and Twitter and so forth, and they're driven by a select interest. Now, there are still laws.
That's true of any company or any corporation or any industry in this country. They have their interests. They have what will work for them, and they will abide by it. Go ahead.
Right. But what I'm saying is, yeah, that's true. And what I'm saying is, with that, is you couple that with why you're seeing so many people sensitive. You don't go toe the company line, they'll get rid of you. And that's what they tend to do with brothers like me. And I mean, Sean's channel is not even monetized. Sean has a shadow ban and he has over 12,000 subscribers. He and I have been doing this for a while, although he around the same time. But the difference with Sean is that Sean put out, I think, more videos than I did and more content than I was doing when I started. When I started on YouTube, you know, you start out as a subscriber to watch the videos, and then later on, when I was promoting my book on Katrina, that's kind of how I got started making video content. And then recently, I just started getting into it because I saw all the people doing it, and I thought it'd be great. But we got people in the chat. Computer Robots, what's up? He says, it's always a pleasure to have you all both here and talk about celebrity death mysteries. Do you guys think you could cover Billie Holiday? Well, we've talked about that before, and probably for our next topic, we could talk about.
You mentioned, I think you mentioned it to me recently.
I did.
You wanted to talk about Lady Day, I guess.
Lady Day one day, yeah. I also wanted to talk.
The only thing I would say to you, don't play Strange Fruit. We talk about Billie Holiday, don't play Strange Fruit. I'm not kidding. Don't play that song.
No, I
play it. Don't do it. You'll get you'll get more than a copyright.
Yeah. No, I won't play that song. I won't play it. Well, I don't play anybody's music but mine, but apparently I can't even play my own.
Yes, that's why I said and the reason I'm saying this, it's a little off topic here, but it's serious. I've been around a sector where I've seen copyright strikes used like mortars rounds, used like missiles aimed at people to get people's channels destroyed and shut down. So it's not a joke. I mean, copyright strikes are not anything to play with.
Yeah.
So if you get copyright strikes, you get one. If you get two more,
Yeah.
you're in trouble in terms of your channel. And remember, for folks out there, these channels aren't just channels. If they're monetized, they're a source of, you're jeopardizing a source of revenue. You're jeopardizing a source of, I mean, like I said, I've seen a lot of ugly things in this other sector, which I'm not referring to, since I've been around this. I knew nothing about YouTube, but I'm a quick learner, and I began to learn fast. And I've seen what's happened. So, and I have to announce, I guess on the show, that I actually uploaded my first ever video on YouTube.
What's your YouTube channel?
Yesterday. I don't know if it's out already, but I uploaded it yesterday. I don't know. I don't know your channel. I don't want to say. People will find out. But I will say that I did it to promote my brand new Substack, because I'm on Substack now. So I have a brand new Substack, and I just got on Substack, and I just did a part one of a two-part story entitled "Be True to Buying Your School," and people can check it out there. My Substack is albertlanier.substack.com. I think that's I think it's albertlanier.substack.com.
Well,
like I said, I'm new to Substack, so I just set up a Substack.
Make sure you give
I had
me the
an
right
article that
so
dropped, as they say, on Sunday. So it's been out for more than a day, a couple of days.
Yeah, well, make sure you get the right name and so forth, so I can be sure to blast and promote it. Y'all heard that Al is on YouTube and he's on Substack, so y'all check that out.
Right.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, I believe it's albertlanier.substack.com, but albertlanier@substack.com. That's it that I've seen. My YouTube video is a brief video promoting my Substack. I guess I don't know how it works on YouTube. Like I said, I've never been a content creator before, so I'm not sure if I'll do any more videos because I don't know how all this works on YouTube. But I mean, I know a good deal of what works on YouTube, but like I said, I did that to promote my Substack. I might do a couple of other short videos, like maybe to promote this.
Taisha.
Excuse me. To promote this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they mess with, and even notifications. People don't get notifications anymore when you go live. That's another way.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a problem on a bunch of channels. Like every time I watch some YouTube channel, be sure to hit the bell so you can be notified about future videos. See, I even, for some reason, it's ingrained in my head. And I'm not, I used to just watch YouTube. But you gotta, hit the bell, I guess. Hit the icon, hit the bell, what have you. Make sure you get notified about other videos.
Subscribe. Yeah, that's the only way. But yeah, to get the notifications, you hit the bell. But sometimes they'll scrub what they do is they scrub your subscribers too from the channel, which shrinks it. So yeah. Taisha said if you put black title, your video is restricted for ads. Yeah, they do stuff like that.
Ooh. Yeah, there are certain words I understand. If you put them in, I guess, titles or anywhere, not going to help. It'll hurt you. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Just for the record, too, Al, that Olympian who won the surfing competition, her name is Carissa Moore. She's from Honolulu. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of her. Yeah, I've heard of her. But I haven't been out on the beach in a long time.
Well, that's her there. just so everybody knows, if you've been watching the Olympics. Some people, like I said, most people haven't. But let us,
All right.
yeah. But
So
let
we're
us,
here
yeah.
to so we're here to discuss secret societies. So you may be wondering, why am I discussing this topic? Actually, the reason why I'm discussing secret societies is I actually had many years ago, when I was much younger, looked into secret societies. It was kind of an intellectual hobby of mine. I used to be, when I was living on although I'm originally from Hawaii, I had lived in both Seattle and LA. And I lived in Seattle for a year, and I lived in LA for nearly half a year back in the 90s. And then I came back home to Hawaii, and I went back to the mainland, served there. So I went to the mainland. And so when I came back from the mainland, I had actually used to listen to, out of boredom, I guess, talk radio. You know, when I wasn't working, when I wasn't writing articles, I used to listen to local talk radio, and sometimes I'd tune in. I'd call into shows, and there was a particular talk show. I can't remember the name or the person, but she was into a lot of secret societies, some of which you had mentioned previously, and in the program, and she kind of got. I sort of wondered, well, what is this Illuminati? What is this
Illuminati? Yeah.
Trilateral Commission? I had no idea what they were. And so, and this was in, I'd say, about the late 90s, in the late 90s, about 97, 98. And so I started researching. And it was odd because there was a guy who used to call in on this show. And his name's Gary. And he started at one point sending me stuff. And it was odd because he would he never send his address. Like, you know, when you get postage, snail mail, you get it from an address to an address, but he would never include his address. He was rather secretive and coy for whatever reason. And he would give his name as Gary on the show. And so he recommended he talk about certain things on the show, like books, normally about quote unquote, not only secret societies, but what I would call conspiracies as a whole. He would talk about books like the Truth and Money book. Usually these books were self-published or very small publishers doing them. Books like the Truth and Money book, a rather infamous classic, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. I don't know if he noted it, but this is another book. So when I started looking into
Jekyll Island is a very important played a very important role in the foundation of the Federal Reserve. If anybody knows that,
it's where Nelson Aldrich was a senator from Rhode Island, and a number. Warburg, who was involved with the formation of the Federal Reserve. It's where a number of these banking executives, elites, politicians, so forth met to plan what became the Federal Reserve Act. So, as I mentioned before, going back to what I was talking about, so I started looking into, because I had tuned in a show and they would mention things like, you know, Trilateral Commission, Illuminati, and so forth. I started looking into this. Now, again, this was, about the mid to late 90s, about 97, 98, late 90s, 97, 98. I started looking into this. Now, you have to understand that there was no big, bad internet as we know it now. So a lot of my research had to do, and I was doing it because I tend to do that as an individual. I tend to have what I call IRHs, which is intellectual research hobbies. And I've done that with certain other things. I'll go and research a case. I'll go and research some historical event. I'll go and research some organization. In this case, it was secret society. So I went to libraries and I started looking up books and found out books. Like I mentioned, some of the books that were mentioned on the show were Truth and Money book, I think Creature from Jekyll Island, and I managed to get a copy of a book that was an important one in the development of a guy that a lot of people may know today, Alex Jones. The book was named None Dare Call It Conspiracy, written by a guy called Gary Allen. And I had a copy of that book. So I had done my research into what I call the conspiratorial infrastructure. And the conspiratorial infrastructure is what I note is the belief in conspiracies of various types, right? So Alex Jones is one of the progenitors, maybe not the progenitor, but one of the people who would be part of this, what I call conspiratorial infrastructure. You also had people before him, like William Cooper, who wrote the book Behold the Pale Horse, which of course is derived from the Bible, I think. And William Cooper, of course, had called Alex, I think, a bold-faced liar before he died, sometime before he died. And of course, William Cooper had died. I think some people view his death as suspicious.
People say he was murdered.
And so, well, I think some people believe that.
Yeah.
I've studied, again, as part of my what I call IRH, which is intellectual research hobby. I had looked into the conspiratorial infrastructure of individuals, and I had looked into secret societies. And this was 20 years ago. I think I'd also read at one point, I think his name was Anthony Sutton. I hope I have his name correct. I think he had written a book called America's Secret Establishment. And it may have just talked about skull and bones. So I looked into this a long, long time ago. And I had done my research. I found it interesting. But like a lot of my intellectual research hobbies, you do it and you move on, right? You don't keep at it because I have other things to do. Like I said, I was a print journalist for 22 years, and I've been a writer. I think next month will be, 27 years, a professional writer. So I had other things to do. Now, what got me interested in discussing it again was because I had never talked about it publicly or never gone on shows like this to discuss it. Now, what got me interested in discussing it again were a couple of aspects in the media. One was an actress called Ellie Kemper. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was in the hit TV show The Office. Yeah, she got, I guess, outed. Not really outed, but she had been back in the 90s. I think it was in the 90s. The so-called Queen of Love and Beauty is part of the Veiled Prophet Ball, which I think is held in Missouri. Which is of course is fundamentally it's this sort of mock or faux. It looked like mock or faux Arab. Yeah, and she was the queen of this Veiled Prophet Ball, and of course that ball, that event was set up as a, I guess, largely all white or all Caucasian event, which kept out African Americans and Jews. So that was in the news. Another thing that was in the news was a guy called by the name of Ian Smith. I think he's a doctor, Dr. Ian Smith. He was in the news recently because he was complaining about a show called, I think, the Tamron Hall Show. He said that she and her black producer, executive producer, weren't really looking for different types of African American guests, right? They didn't just want
specifically
PR
what
people,
they were saying
public relations.
They were ignoring African American guests, and they were trying to put out, I guess, what we call a negative connotation or stereotype of blacks that you want to focus on instead of positive images. So, for instance, Dr. Ian Smith.
Well, yeah, they wanted certain kinds of guests. They didn't want to be typed as a quote black show. So they didn't want certain types of guests, and so he was not happy because he felt that doctors, lawyers, African American doctors, lawyers, and others should be on the show or should be on shows like that. Now, Ian Smith himself had written a novel, I think it was a couple of years, or I forget how many years before, called, I think it was The Ancient Nine. And it was based supposedly on his experience of being a member of a secret club at Harvard, or a private club at Harvard called the Delphi Club. And so the final aspect deals with why I'm talking about secret societies now. Huh?
You're talking about Dr. Ian Smith?
Correct. I just noted Dr. Ian Smith. Yeah.
Okay.
So the final aspect that got me interested in talking about secret societies again was, or at least in terms of going on shows to discuss it, was something that it had come up, I think, on YouTube. I don't know much about Roland Martin, but he has a show on YouTube, and someone had one of his guests, there were two guests, and one was talking about this other guest, I guess he's a student at the University of Alabama, should be wary of a society and a group known as the Machine on the campus there. Now, I've looked into this society, the Machine, and the Machine is also known as Theta Nu Epsilon fraternity. Basically, what the Machine is at the campus of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, it's basically an alliance of fraternities and sororities, and it usually revolves around what is known as SGA, or Student Government Association. And the whole point of the Machine is that they normally control, and they have controlled since at least 1914 or so, for over 100 years. They usually control not only student politics at the University of Alabama, but also the election of the homecoming queen. And for some reason, I didn't know much about the University of Alabama other than its football club. I mean, its football team. But beyond that, and supposedly the homecoming queen election is taken very seriously at that school, and it's a big deal. Now, the Machine is, I don't know if it's tried to be a little more integrated now, but it is notoriously all white, all Caucasian society. Like I said, it's basically an alliance of fraternities and sororities on the campus of SGA. I'm sorry, on the campus of U of A, University of Alabama. And from my understanding, what some of the houses, and sororities houses have is a Machine representative, or Machine representative goes to Machine. And what they do is they control, they put up a candidate for election, or candidates for election, for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, what have you. And their candidates normally win. Not always, but they normally do. Let me note a couple of circumstances about independence. So when we talk about the Machine, people may wonder, well, what's the big deal about a fraternal organization or a amalgamation of fraternities and sororities that control campus politics? Well, what's interesting is that the Machine, the members of the Machine, I believe, that graduate, usually they go into politics in Alabama. Not always, but often, and have influence beyond the campus at Tuscaloosa. But the campus, they have influence in the legislature and in other councils, and maybe other political bodies in the state, not only in the capital, but in the state of Alabama. Now, I just wanted to note a couple of elections, a couple of aspects. So why is talking about the Machine relevant in regards to secret societies? Well, they are, for one, a secret society. The other is that, looking at a couple of aspects, is the tactics that are used by the members, whoever they are, of the Machine against other students on campus that try to do their own thing and don't toe the line. One example is John Bolus, who I believe won the presidency, the SGA presidency in 1983 as an independent, not backed by the Machine. Bolus, I think it was his roommate, found that someone had tapped the room, that there's a wiretap in the room. It's running, I think, out from the phone line and out somewhere else. Another aspect was in 1986, a guy called John Merrill, or a student called John Merrill, had initially gotten machine backing to win the vice presidency of SGA. In 1986, he went independent and won the presidency. And what happened was that he actually caught, I think it was a senator who was with SGA, but he caught someone trying to break into his on-campus office. And he had to call the police, and I think this guy was photographed by the student newspaper. I think the name of the student newspaper is Crimson White, if I'm not mistaken. So those are a couple of instances. You have a lady by the name of Minda Riley, who is related to a governor of Alabama. She was actually, from what I understand, reportedly attacked. Someone broke in and attacked her, like punched her face or something along that line. And I think they burned a cross on the lawn of her home or something like that. But I think she ended up leaving the campus. So those are some of the tactics that have been involved in regards to Theta Nu Epsilon, what is called the most quote unquote powerful fraternity in the United States. But so those are the examples of why I started deciding to discuss secret societies, talk about the subject, what I had researched years ago and researched a little of. I didn't know about the machine until relatively recently. In fact, I believe there's a documentary that come out this year about the machine. I think it's called Machine. I'm not quite sure what it's on. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Hulu or what have you, but there is a documentary about.
Want to look at if you want to go to businessinsider.com, we have an article right here on the machine, and I was sharing it earlier, so that link is in the chat. Just some of the things that they had engaged in. We have a delay, Al, so that's why if you're talking and I'm talking, sometimes what happens, it looks like I'm talking over you or you're interrupting you when I talk. So it's kind of lagging. I think they've been messing with the channel because you had froze a little bit while we were discussing the machine. So who knows? That's probably those keywords we got to watch. I don't know. They're watching us. But yeah, the machine. And what's interesting here, when I go to the Google, there's another article here. They call video, actually, Barstool Sports. I don't want to play it, but the title of it says the least secret society in America. When I Google the machine fraternity.
That one is a good kind of basic one for people if they're interested in the machine. That's like a good 101 introductory one. It's entertaining, and you know, if you want to find out about the machine, I've seen that quite some time ago. So that's more of a tongue-in-cheek kind of, I don't want to say satirical, but kind of comedic look, slightly comedic look at the machine.
Right.
But it's a way that you can introduce yourself if you're interested in the subject.
Right. That's the video there, the least secret society. Y'all click on the link for that. Or just Google the machine fraternity and you can go watch that video on YouTube. Just type it in. They call it the, but they went through a history. Look at that Business Insider article. They talk about the first African-American, Cleo Thomas, to win the SGA presidency in 1976. He beat the machine candidate, and the machine radically changed the makeup of its group afterwards. And they reported that as many as 15 men cloaked in white sheets burned crosses through bottles and chanted various revolutionary tunes Thursday night. What they mean by that is revolutionary, that's Confederate. I can just tell revolutionary tunes in what some would say was a reaction to the election of the university's first Black SGA president. And they also erected a cross and burned it in front of the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority house. So they were not happy about that. But that's one thing. The other thing I want to show everybody too, Al, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Now, this is not I don't know if you want to call it a secret society, but it is a club, I guess.
Well,
and
here's the thing. I'll get into that later because that's one of three secret societies that I will be discussing. I'm discussing three, just to let people know. I'll be discussing what you just brought up there, which is Bohemian Grove. I'll be discussing Skull and Bones, and I'll be discussing the Bilderberg.
Okay.
So those are
Which
the
one you
three
want to do first?
societies I'm going to be discussing about. So let me just begin by going into a definition of what my definition of a secret society, so that people have an idea. When you say what do you mean by secret society? What do you consider a secret society? What is a secret society? So the definition and characteristics of secret society, these are mine. Number one, it's an organization or group that composes that depends on selection, usually selection of individuals, and is about secret membership, meaning its membership is usually not public. Sometimes it is. With some secret societies, it's found out, but they don't go out of the way to publicly list members if they don't have to. It's generally it's often a selection basis, and it's a secret membership, meaning they don't let out the names and backgrounds of their members. So that's number one, secret membership and selection. Number two, you're dealing with rituals and traditions. So these organizations have specific rituals and they have specific traditions that are endemic to the organization or group. And the third is that it is within the society, there are private discussions and decisions. In other words, within some of these groups and within some of these societies, you have the discussions are private, off the record, not intended for press, media, or anything that is involving the general public. It's entirely private. It's also possible decision making is done, but that's less of a factor. It's not really about necessarily decision making. So let me go over those three again. By definition and characteristics of secret society. Number one, secret membership and selection basis. Number two, specific rituals and traditions within said society. And three, it consists often of private discussions, not intended for the public or any public institutions, organizations, etc. So those are the three characteristics, part of my definition of secret societies. So I'll be discussing three secret societies, as I had mentioned before. We'll start off with the first. We'll use this as a sort of ladder of sorts, a descending ladder, going from one strata of society to another strata to yet another strata. Okay, one, two, three, going down. Actually, going upwards. So up. Okay. So we'll start out with, on the bottom, we'll start out here with Skull and Bones, right? Skull and Bones is a secret society, specific collegiate secret society on the campus of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, right? Most people know of Yale as a, quote, Ivy League school, part of the Ivy League, and that's, of course, accurate. But Skull and Bones is one of a number of secret societies on the campus of Yale. From what I understand, there are at least 50 secret societies, right? Skull and Bones is one of them. You also have another fairly well-known society, I think that's still around, known as Scroll and Key, I believe. I think they're still around. Now, secret societies are not unusual within colleges and universities. There are a number of colleges and universities that have secret societies. Now, Skull and Bones has gotten a kind of reputation outside of Yale University, not only because of its more famous members, such as George H.W. Bush, who was president of the United States, and his son, George W. Bush, who was also president of the United States, but also John Kerry, who was a senator from Massachusetts.
Right. I was also going to say George Herbert Walker, who is the uncle of or grandfather of Bush as well. That's where George H.W. gets his name from.
So
yeah,
those are the more George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, both of whom were presidents, and Senator John Kerry are probably the most well-known members. There are other members, of course.
William Taft,
The pound. Excuse me.
President Taft.
Well,
He was
yeah.
also,
Again, yeah. So
he's
those
chief.
are well-known members to people today.
Yeah.
So Skull and Bones is, as I mentioned before, is a secret society at Yale, and one of a number of them. And so what happens is, or what used to happen, I don't know if this is the practice nowadays with Skull and Bones. There is in April, I believe, or in the spring, what is known as Tap Day. And the members of Skull and Bones are normally chosen by other, the new members of Skull and Bones are normally chosen by the members already existing or pre-existing. So they keep tabs on individual students on campus and try to assess them as it for their suitability in regards to being part of this secret society. And normally what would happen on Tap Day is that, you know, it's usually tapping of somebody's shoulder and asking them if they want to be a member of, or they accept being a member of Skull and Bones, right? Skull and Bones normally would, then they would, I think, proceed onward at some point to, I believe it's the Tomb, which is the headquarters of Skull and Bones. But at some rate, the individuals, at some point, they would proceed. Now, but every year, I believe, about 50 new members are chosen. Now, I don't know, it used to be outdoors where societies would quote unquote tap people and ask them, you know, and select them for membership. I don't know if this exists, at least for Skull and Bones nowadays. I don't believe it does, but they still choose 15 members every year. And again, this is chosen by the members themselves of Skull and Bones. Now, Skull and Bones itself was founded in the year 1832. It was founded by Alfonso Taft, who was a relative of William Howard Taft, who you mentioned, and another individual by the name of William Huntman, I believe Russell, or William Russell. Now, Russell himself studied in Germany at some point, and I believe may have been aware of or been a part of a German secret society there. So when you look at Skull and Bones, it has certain ties to German secret societies, perhaps in its origination and creation, because William Russell was one of the founders of Skull and Bones, had studied in Germany at one point. Now, as per the name, the visual symbols, the visual aspect of Skull and Bones is skull and crossbones, right? This has, you know, people, when they think of skull and crossbones, they may think of pirates, right? Which is interesting because this is nothing to do with brigands or outlaws or scofflaws at sea. It has to do with members of basically America's, what becomes America's not only business establishment and economic establishment, but America's political establishment. Like I mentioned, two top players, George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush's father, and John Kerry. And there are also others that are Skull and Bones that end up being politicians and businessmen and so forth. And so, like I said, so Skull and Bones was founded in 1832 by both Alfonso Taft and William Russell. And the society has existed ever since 1832. From what I understand, the tradition besides Tap Day is for individuals to arrive at the tomb. I think they have to have a book in one hand and then knock on the door 3 times with your other hand. And of course, once you're in, there are all kinds of rituals and traditions. Now, people have seen the movie The Good Shepherd with Matt Damon. They may be a little aware of Skull and Bones, because in that movie, the character that Matt Damon plays, who ends up being a member of the CIA, the early CIA, has to engage in a ritual or so, which I won't name here. So that movie is a little interesting. And again, it kind of notes what Skull and Bones basically becomes. A lot of its traditions, its rituals, so forth, is shrouded in mystery. Even though certain people have looked into it, it's shrouded in mystery because the members of Skull and Bones are pledged and expected not to discuss the organization, even when they graduate and leave and have other jobs. If they're asked about it,
remember a video.
Not. And I think another aspect is that they, I believe, have to leave the room if it's mentioned or something along that line. But the members have to be secret.
George Bush and
John Kerry was asked.
He said,
John Kerry was asked, right. John Kerry and George W. Bush were asked on Meet the Press.
Right.
About being members. And I think they both said something along the lines of, but don't quote me on this. I'm just paraphrasing, along the lines of, yeah, it's so secret, we can't talk about it.
They did say that.
And that's the line. You can't talk about it if you're a bonesman, as they're known. You're a bonesman, you can't discuss it.
Right. It's important to note, too, as I'm looking at this as well, that Paul Giamatti, as well as Earl Graves Jr., Paul Giamatti is the actor who played Jerry Heller in Straight Outta Compton. He also played John Adams. He's a great actor. He's a member of Skull and Bones, as is Earl Graves Jr. from Black Enterprise, who's also a member of that. Is it restricted solely to whites? I guess not with.
It was largely Caucasian. I'd say largely European American for many, many years. And I think in more recent years, they've kind of opened up the society. I believe it used to be all male. It was all male for many, many years. And then I think it became female. I think there are some female members, from what I understand. And I think it's also a little bit more diverse. I think individuals of other ethnicities and racial groups have been let in, I believe.
Right. I heard that, and something that was reported, purportedly, that the bones and the remains of Geronimo are used in the ceremony at Skull and Bones. Have you heard of that?
I've heard about it, yeah. I'm certainly familiar with that. Yeah, I've heard about it. But that, as ghoulish as that is, that's not really been my area of interest in regards to Skull and Bones. It's more like the fact that Skull and Bones, the secret society, is basically sort of, I think, not unlike any other, not unlike for your actual semi-public fraternities. Fraternities are somewhat secret too, but so they're not explicitly secret societies. But I think not unlike your sort of semi-public fraternities on college campuses, it's networking. If you look at fraternities, a number of politicians, a number of businessmen are members of college fraternities, or were members of fraternities. So fraternities are not jokes as they are portrayed in some movies. It's not just an excuse to drink beer and engage in all kinds of. It's not just all kinds of reprobate behavior. It's not just men behaving badly. There's serious networking opportunities and interconnections of people in fraternities when they graduate and when they go into the world of work and business, economics, and so forth.
Yeah.
But getting back to Skull and Bones, like I mentioned previously, it's known for its skull and crossbones sign or symbol. But the thing that you have to understand about Skull and Bones, you have the number 322, which is below it. Now, 322 is said to have something to do with the Greek city-states, right?
The what?
But, that's what it's supposedly tied to. But it could, the actual meaning is unknown. That's a speculation that people have brought up. And it could relate to its founding. After all, it was founded in 1832. So you add another 2, who knows what that means. So Skull and Bones is important not only because it's produced at least a couple of presidents at least, but also because of the individuals who are players in politics, in economic, in the business realm, economic realm, and maybe some other realms. So that's why Skull and Bones is important. It has its issues and it's a secret society, but it's important because of its members, who they are, who they became, and their interconnections in the realms of finance and business and politics. So that, of course, is Skull and Bones.
Right. I have.
So we've gotten that first level.
And this is the most
Skull and Bones, collegiate. So let's
This is Demos.
So we go from Skull and
about. It was a Greek orator.
Demosthenes.
Demosthenes, yeah.
Yes.
Just so everybody could see. All right.
Right.
And this is
so we've, like I mentioned, we've just examined Skull and Bones.
Right.
We've examined Skull and Bones. We've gone at the sort of, let's just say it's like a building, right? You got the foundation, first level, built maybe at the first level, foundation and maybe a first level, right? Say this is a 3-story building, right? You built the foundation and you built the first floor, right? Now we go from the foundation in the first floor to a second floor, as I call it. And the second floor is what I would call Bohemian Grove. Actually, Bohemian Grove is the retreat in a place called Monte Rio, California, near the Russian River Valley, of the Bohemian Club, which was established in about the late 19th century, 1872, late 19th century. The Bohemian Club was actually started by artists and journalists. And the motto of the Bohemian Club is "Weaving spiders come not here," which derives from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. So Shakespeare's play, Midsummer Night's Dream. And the club itself has a retreat. That's, I think, that it owns some more than 2,000 acres in, like I said, Northern California, Monte Rio specifically, and in the Russian River Valley area where it is.
Right.
And
I want everybody
now,
to look.
what happened was that
Wait, hold up, pal.
the people that had founded Bohemian Grove, Bohemian Club, and of course eventually Bohemian Grove, the retreat. Like I said, they were journalists and they were artists and so forth. And so,
I want everybody to look at this picture. Yeah,
well, I'll get to that picture. Right, I'll get to that picture, but we have to discuss Bohemian Grove. Now, like I said, Bohemian Grove is the club was set up. It was taken over more corporate-oriented business types and more politically oriented individuals. And so it became what we now know today. Now, at Bohemian Club itself, like I said, it's about 2,000 acres or so. Actually, to join the Bohemian Club and take part in the retreat, which occurs, I think, every year in the summertime. I don't know if it's around this time. I think it usually takes place in either late July or early August. So it's around that. It's either July or August. In 2 weeks, they go out there to Bohemian Grove in Monte Rio, California. And so it's a $25,000 fee to join the club and become a member, I think, every year. And they have a long waiting list. So now, when you look at the actual Bohemian Grove, the retreat, which is what we're discussing mostly, surrounded, it's within all of these redwoods. So there are lots of redwood trees in the area. And they serve as a kind of I guess you could say protection, because you had those very tall, massive trees. And, in case helicopters try to snoop or people try to break in, as has happened before. It's a lot of security there at Bohemian Grove. Now, what goes on, like I said, there is normally a retreat, or there is a retreat for the club members and guests every year, usually in the summertime, right? Either July or August. And so around this time, possibly. And what they do as part of kicking off the festivities there at Bohemian Grove is they engage in what they call the cremation of care ceremony. Now, they have at one part of the grove this enormous, gigantic owl that's about 40 feet high or above 40 feet high. And they have a sort of altar or a sort of stage that's below that gigantic stone, I believe. I think it's a stone owl.
Well, that's it there.
They have this enormous stone owl about 40 feet high or more.
That's the owl.
I don't think that's the owl.
Well, it says here the owl shrine covered in moss.
No, I don't think that is. Yeah, I don't think that is.
Well, I mean, that's just the picture details. It may not be the owl, but they call it the shrine where it's at. This is
yeah, that's the grove. That could be one part of the grove. Again, it's not a public place. Like I said, it's very private, and they don't allow unless you're an invited guest, you're not going to go into the Bohemian Grove. Like I said, if you're not an invited guest, you're not going to go into Bohemian Grove, because it's very private, as it should be, as a private retreat of a private club. The club itself, the Bohemian Club, is in San Francisco, but this retreat is in Monte Rio and near the Russian River Valley. Now, like I said, they have this cremation of care, where, quote, care, I guess a personification of care or a symbol of care, or I'd say personification, is placed in a casket and I think burnt to some extent. And that, I think, is part of the festivities that go on there every year at the Bohemian Club. They have, and so the retreat, there are a number of what they call lectures and panels, and I believe panels and lectures and presentations that go on that are dealing with various aspects of, I think, U.S. foreign, and I think domestic policy, and also other kinds of foreign policy, if I'm not mistaken. You have people, I think, that are both guests, and it could be members, but I think guests, and they engage in what are known as lakeside talks, which is a talk near one of the lakes that flow in the, or a lake that flows in the Bohemian Grove retreat property. And of course, much like what Skull and Bones used to be, Bohemian Grove is an all-male organization in terms of the retreat. It's all male. No women are allowed on the premises of the club in terms of being guests, if I'm not mistaken, or they're certainly not allowed as members. No woman can become a member of the Bohemian Club, or I believe Bohemian Grove. So it's all male. So that has to be pointed out. And so it's pretty, and so again, it's a retreat that's about a couple of weeks in the summer, and they discuss various things. They have, I think, plays that go on. They do little plays or playlets that goes on in the club. And they also have other activities that the members engage in. Now, the picture on, I believe it's right here, that picture that you see, sort of an orangey picture that you see over here, that I believe is the giant owl. And it's more than 40 feet high.
Well, it's the same one. I think this is a side view, and this is what it looks like at night there with the fire. Yeah, and Alex Jones took video footage of it.
Yes, reportedly.
Yeah, and got in trouble. Well, he didn't get in trouble. He put it on
Well,
his TV. Yeah.
again, I won't get into Alex Jones too much, but yeah, he's notorious for having supposedly snuck in to Bohemian Grove and shot footage of it. And my view of that, frankly, is I think he was let in. They had to have known he was there because they don't allow anyone in that retreat. There's security. You've got all kinds of cameras, all kinds of security equipment, certainly a system, a security grid and protection system there. So people have tried sneaking in, didn't succeed. Now, Bohemian Grove is especially noteworthy because of the political connections and the political personalities that have been at the club. And of course, there's a picture there. And the picture that you're seeing there, again, I believe it's on the right. If you look at the picture,
Yes.
I don't know if you want to zoom in on that.
Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Okay. As I mentioned before, Bohemian Grove is important primarily because of the politicians and other kinds of individuals that show up, but primarily politicians and political personalities that are invited and show up at Bohemian Grove. From what I understand, it's primarily been Republican, although I'm sure you have some Democrats that are invited guests, but it's primarily Republican orientation in regards to the politicians that have been at Bohemian Grove or are known for being at Bohemian Grove.
Trying to see if I can zoom in. Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah. So I guess summer, and it brings it there. You have the Commission of Care ceremony, very ritualistic. Involved in Walter Cronkite voice and is heard in some of these ceremonies. That's the aspect in regard. And
Al, you still there? Are you frozen?
no, I'm not frozen.
It's just a lag. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you hear me when I was speaking?
I can hear you when you're speaking. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Right. Could you hear me before?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was partially broken up. So
okay.
It's like off and on.
Well, I'm just recapping a little of what has been noted here about Bohemian Grove. So, like I said, it's this 2-week retreat every summer for the members of the Bohemian. Again, there are panels and presentations, very interesting. Again, as per any other secret society or secret group in this case, this is retreat. The discussions are meant to be on the premises only and off limits for press, media, or any public consumption. So It's what I would call Chatham House rules, meaning don't talk.
Right.
So that's something about Bohemian Grove that has to be noted. It's not for public consumption. It's only for private members and individuals and guests to discuss and talk. And so they can talk off the record.
2 former presidents there. Well, then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan. And to the left of him is, I believe, is Preston Hitchcock, called Preston Hotchkiss, Ronald Reagan. The gentleman, I don't know who that is speaking. I think I can pull it out when I back out of here. But that's Richard.
In the picture, what you see are Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan that are flanking the individuals. So, interestingly, I guess that's the best that you can do on that picture. that picture had, again, Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon.
Right.
The
There's Glenn
Richard,
Seaborg next to Nixon.
well, in any event, like I said, Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon are in the picture. Of course, they're both they were both presidents of the United States. Now, interestingly enough, when I was reading a book on Nixon and Eisenhower as a political team, the book had mentioned, I forget the title of the book. It was called Ike and Dick, but don't quote me on that. But the book noted that both Eisenhower and Nixon had actually first met at Bohemian Grove. So I think the first meeting in general was at Bohemian Grove in one of the areas in one of the camps or one of the areas at Bohemian Grove. So that's the kind of interesting detail. That reportedly they met there. They're both Eisenhower and Nixon met there. And of course, Nixon ended up running with Eisenhower on the presidential ticket in 1952 and in 1956. So Nixon was vice president under President Dwight Eisenhower for about 8 years.
Right. And he lost to JFK in the 1960 election, although they say
Yes,
Kennedy, was that election was stolen for Kennedy by the mob. That's another story for another topic. But Kennedy did something too very interesting, and he's tied into this, where he gave a speech in 1961, speaking against secret societies and saying how the word secret is repugnant in an open republic, in a democratic republic. And that was in 1961.
He gave a speech about secret societies, and that's interesting considering JFK's presidency and JFK's I guess what happened to JFK. But that's an interesting footnote about JFK. Now, again, in regards to what we're discussing, Bohemian Grove, the important part about is that Bohemian Grove, again, is an area where there are off-the-record discussions with individuals and members, both guests and members. And there are no discussions for public consumption, for media consumption, for press consumption. In fact, supposedly, and press are not allowed there. Media are not allowed. I believe it was a report I had seen when I was looking at a documentary about Skull and Bones, that reportedly there was a reporter for, I think it was People magazine, that tried sneaking in, that had snuck into Bohemian Grove and got kicked out, is eventually fired. Now, so we look at, we've already considered Skull and Bones to the collegiate level. So we move up, people have left, and they're in whatever positions. Some of them, maybe many of them high profile. And so they would be in a position to become members of the Bohemian Club and thus go to Bohemian Grove, right? So now we get to a third group, and the final group I'm going to discuss. And that is, again, not so much a group per se, but again, under meeting, at this time of meeting, like a convention or a conclave, it's known as the Bilderberg Group. Now, the Bilderberg Group got its name from the Bilderberg Hotel in 1954, which is when the first convention, I would call it, first conclave, that was the Bilderberg Conclave, was held, I think, from about May 29th to about the 31st. And it was in Holland. So they took their name, or the name of the group is known, the name basically comes from the name of the hotel that they had met in. Now, this group is, again, another secret group. And when you talk about highly restrictive, but again, the difference is, instead of being a retreat like, say, Bilderberg, instead of being a retreat, unlike, say, Bohemian Grove, or being a collegiate secret society, kind of not quite fraternity, but a secret group, club, unlike Skull and Bones. The Bilderberg Group is only has its conclave for about 3 days. And again, as per what goes on with Skull and Bones' a secret society and also Bohemian Grove, there are discussions, there are presentations, and much like Bohemian Grove, there are presentations, probably panels, though I'm not sure about that. And of course, talks, discussions. But these are, of course, not for media consumption. Now, here's the interesting thing. They do invite a member or two of, there are selected media invited to the Bilderberg Group. And the Bilderberg Group varies. They're in city, it depends. They never really meet in the same city every year. It's always a different city every year. And usually it's at some upscale hotel, maybe a resort. Of course, very tight security. And again, I think the difference compared to something like Bohemian Grove or Skull and Bones, of course, is you do have selected media and selected press, but it's maybe a couple members, maybe a few at best. And these individuals, like all the other attendees, cannot discuss what goes on. So they can't, they're not going to report, they're not going to talk, they're not going to say anything. Sorry, what?
But I said that's what I was going to say. The press can be there, but they can't discuss what goes on inside.
Well, some members can be there. Some are selected to attend, but they cannot report
anything to the disclose anything to the public.
They can't. Yeah, they can't discuss anything. Chatham House rules. Now, again, what's important to note is that, again, these are off the record panels, presentations, talks, and lecture possibly. And again, they are not intended for public consumption, public knowledge. And again, like Bohemian Grove, there are personal discussions that people have. Unlike Bohemian Grove, which is a retreat, and unlike Skull and Bones, which is a collegiate kind of club, the Bilderberg Group seems to be about what I would call future development and what I would call talent spotting for the future talent spotting, right? One of the people involved in it is a British politician or a British politician named Dennis Healy, and he was involved with the Bilderberg Group to a certain extent. And one of the things he said about Bilderberg that was quoted, I believe, in a TV segment about Bilderberg, discussing Bilderberg, was, we make a point of getting along younger politicians who are obviously rising, to put them together with financiers and industrialists who offer them wise work with the Bilderberg. So that's important. You want to get potential talent, rising up and comers in terms of politics. Individuals like Bill Clinton. I believe Margaret Thatcher was one who attended Bilderberg at some point prior to her career as prime minister. So they're two examples. But you want to get younger rising politicians, younger politicians with potential, and you bring them there so they can interface and interact with the sort of members of certain parts of the elites, certain parts of what I would call the ruling class. Because what the people who attend the Bilderberg Group conference basically are individuals not only from the world of politics, politicians and officials, but also businessmen, financiers, corporate titans, corporate heads at times. And so very important individuals, very vital individuals in terms of the business world and politics, and probably economics as well. So that's why I know that Bilderberg is different from Bohemian Grove and Skull and Bones in that it's more about, it's a conference and it's a conclave, and it's about getting together the potential future stars of tomorrow with, say, some of the stars, or maybe some of the more well-known and powerful individuals of the present and of the past.
Let me read a quote. This is directly from this gentleman by the name of Dennis Healy, who was a British Labour Party politician and a founder of the Bilderberg and steering committee. Was a member for over 30 years. He says, quote, "To say that we are striving for a one world government is exaggerated, but not wholly unfair. Those of us in Bilderberg felt we couldn't go on forever fighting one another for nothing and killing people and rendering millions homeless. So we felt that a single community throughout the world would be a good thing." So you're essentially saying you are, but you ain't. But you are.
Well, that's important. Well, it's interesting you note that quote from, again, Dennis Healy, who was a politician involved with Bilderberg Group. And I think that's important to note because Bilderberg essentially came about as a sort of way of meeting about and discussing what the plans for post-war Europe were. Again, this was the 1950s. World War I and World War II had ended in 1945, so it was several years from the end of World War II, and you're looking at European nations trying to rebuild themselves, trying to get their economies back in order, trying to get a lot of the elements of their societies back in shape. And Healy's quote that you mentioned says something about, I guess, the appeal for some of a more global approach as opposed to a more regional and provincial approach. A kind of weariness with not only World War II, which killed probably over 50 million people and caused untold wreckage and devastation globally, which had also caused, anyone knows, the so-called clear state and render peace agreements and render and sort of keep a certain kind of peace and stability. So I think what Healy speaks to there is a sort of peace and stability that was sought for Europe. And I think with Bilderberg, it's not no longer just Europe and looking at what a post-war Europe will evolve into, but it's also what the world might evolve into and should evolve into in their view. So I think it's interesting you bring that point out, or that not only point out, but that quote from Dennis Healy, who is a member of the Labour Party, a politician of the Labour Party. And so I think when you look at something like the Bilderberg Group is sort of the ultimate, you get international, right? And the reason that I brought out these 3 points is that with the Bilderberg, it's international reach. Now, again, to quote, it is a private conference. And unless you are one of the fortunate members of the media invited, you will not be allowed in at all. No media, no press, no nothing. And if you try covering it, as some people have learned, you might get thrown in jail if you're trying to cover the conference and you're not a member. It's not unusual where people that have been thrown in jail, arrested, thrown in jail during this conference. So again, there you go with the 3 elements. And so we see the 3 elements, right? The first floor, Skull and Bones at Yale University, collegiate secret society. Second floor is Bohemian Grove Retreat, part of the Bohemian Club in Monte Rio, California. The club is in San Francisco, but the retreat's in Monte Rio, California, right? Second floor. So that's a retreat, part of a club, in making discussions and debating about certain issues or talking about certain issues, various issues, foreign and U.S. policy decisions. And then finally, the third floor, which is the Bilderberg Group, which is more international in scale because it's held across the globe. It's not simply held, it's not really held in the US that much. It's in various countries across the world, and brings together, it's a kind of a talent spotting and kind of a development part of conference, besides discussing and evaluating various global and national issues. But it also brings together rising political stars with older political personalities and financial titans and captains of industry, to use that hoary cliche, that in terms of secret societies that we've evaluated and that I've looked at and I've analyzed here. So you go from the local, in a sense, wherever you went to school, in this case, New Haven, Connecticut, with your secret society. National, in the sense of Bohemian Grove, because you're dealing with other movers and shakers and other individuals. Then finally, international with Bilderberg. You're talking to people. So those are the three secret societies that I've evaluated and analyzed and looked into here. And they form what I call this three-story secret society complex. So there you go. And those are just three secret societies. Now, they're not all. There are other kinds of secret societies, right? You mentioned some before. You have the notorious Freemasons, which has been around for at least a couple centuries, if not more.
You have the Boule. Well, they talk about the Sigma Pi Phi, the Boule, which is the I've heard that all the time with the black fraternities and so forth that are a part of that. And no disrespect to my black fraternity friends that are on here, but yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, there's also I mentioned, although it's not a secret society, but the International Monetary Fund. I've heard them being a part of.
Yeah, that's not a secret society. So,
but well, I already said that, Albert. I said that from the beginning.
Right. So,
right.
There are clearly other societies, secret societies that are out there, but I decided to look at three because I think these are three more important secret societies, and they're societies that have a degree of knowledge about them. I mean, some people are aware of them, and they also, I think, have a certain amount of reach, a certain amount of power. It's debatable how much power they have. It's debatable how much reach they have and ability and influence, but clearly they have some degree of influence. And I think it's important to know these three secret societies: Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, and Bilderberg.
Right. And that I had just shared a list. It's interesting when you go look at that list. If you look in the comment section, we've had former presidents and presidential candidates that have gone. And what's interesting, they all went before they threw their hat in the race. So like Bill Clinton was a member when he was governor of he was a guest when he was governor of Arkansas in 1991. And then Hillary went in 1997. She was still first lady. John Kerry went sometime before he became, presidential candidate, John Kerry. So I think that's very interesting to keep in mind. How the governor gets to go there. Yeah.
That's why I say
all the way out to the Netherlands.
That's why I say it's talent spotting. You want the new blood, so to speak. You want the new kids on the block to attend something like Bilderberg. Not just the older, more established members. Yeah, they can come, but it's the new kids on the block, because that's part of what I call the talent spotting and the development. You're developing the future stars of tomorrow, future political stars, future economic stars in some respects, but primarily political stars. like I said, I had read that quote from Dennis Ely, and the quote is, we are part of getting along younger politicians who are obviously rising to put them together with financiers, industrialists who often offer them wise words. So I think that's a definition of part of what that organization is able to do and what that conference is able to do for guests, especially up and coming politicians and political officials.
Yeah. And anyone that's interested, you can go look online and look up Adam Weishaupt. He was a German philosopher, and he was the founder of what they call the Illuminati. The Illuminati was created on July 4th, 1776, which is the day that we all celebrate here in the United States as our Day of Independence. Although what's true is that Jefferson and the others had signed the Declaration sometime beforehand or afterhand, if I'm not mistaken. But just interesting dates that they all come up with. July 4th, 1776. That, when I first read that, I was like, wow. They don't waste time. They're good in symbols. That's Adam Weishaupt's portrait right there. And
right. Well, that's the Illuminati. That's a whole other.
That's a different story.
An older secret society, which was, I think, eliminated back in the 18th century. It was and revolved around, because it was very different at the time, not too different. Learning, men of reason, men of science, or what was considered science at the time, focused on reason, logic, and rationality, as opposed to the illogic, irrationality that was part of, and lack of reason that was part of the state because of the role of religion within the state.
Yeah. Well, that may be a different topic one day. Wonder if anybody has any questions. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We're going in on secret societies. Anybody have questions? A lot of people have some comments. I said Obama went as well. I believe I think Dusty is referring to the Bilderberg meeting.
Yeah, I believe so. That's the rumor anyway, that Obama attended.
Wouldn't surprise me if he did.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Jerome Ray from the Night Ward. All right, watching. My 504 is in the building. Nobody's leaving some comments or questions. Let's see if we got some people on Facebook who are watching. We got about 25 people. Nobody on Facebook watching, nobody on Periscope, but we got people on the G Boot channel and the Gavin Louis Sharp, my backup channel, that are watching. It's interesting. There was just one final thing. It's interesting you mentioned about the reporter. I don't know if you know this, but I believe there was a journalist, Jim Tucker, if I'm not mistaken. Could be who.
He was a reporter with the Spotlight, and he used to cover Bilderberg.
Right, and that's what I want to ask you about, because he was actually on not Alex Jones, but Jesse Ventura's. Someone said Boulay. Yeah, I've heard about them. But I don't think Al has covered or spoke on that one. That's another topic. But yeah, Jim Tucker. I remember he was on Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory show that was there, and they showed video footage of him covering the Bilderbergs and being chased and followed by security everywhere he went. I don't know if I was wondering if you knew him or were familiar with him.
Yeah, he used to write for a far-right publication called The Spotlight. I think eventually Spotlight became another publication called America Free Press. And I've seen some copies. I've read some copies of that. Not so much part of my conspiracy research. but later on, I was aware of it in my research, and I came across some copies, and so it's interesting. It's always interesting to read rather fringe, very outside the mainstream publications, newspapers, magazines, etc. Very interesting.
Yeah, he wrote here that Margaret Thatcher was removed from office because she didn't like the one meeting of the Bilderberg she attended.
Mm. I
And
believe.
they replaced her with the trapeze artist for this from the same part. How about Sir John Major? That's funny.
Mm.
Yeah, he said they exist and they're not playing pinochle in there.
Certainly not.
No, not with heavy hitters like that, like Bill Clinton and past presidents. What's up, Aboriginal, Maximus Royalty? Shout out to Rosalind. Rosalind is in the building. I saw Taisha Essex earlier. Long Tone Song, Baby Doll, everybody, Derek Bailey. Guys, hit that like, share, and subscribe. Also, please donate. You see the links at the bottom: Cash App, PayPal, Zelle. You can also do Google Pay. This channel, we've been fighting hard to get it monetized, but we don't get paid for coming forward with the information like this. This is something that we do out of our own time. It takes a lot of effort to put in. But before we go, of course, we want to thank Al for this information, and we'll have you come back on and discuss some more stuff. I do want to ask you or tell everybody where they can find you if you'd like to follow Al.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier in the program, I think at the beginning, I just started what is known as Substack. Substack is a service for writers and journalists. It's seen as a way to generate income, actually. If you decide you're not going to go the newspaper route, magazine route, or if experienced newspaper journalist and magazine journalist like me, some of them have gone the Substack route, and you normally have subscribers. It's a newsletter type format, or it's conceived of as a newsletter. So I'm just new on Substack. I just had, and I have a story there known as "Be True to Buying Your School." That's a part one. So you can find me on Substack, albertlanier.substack.com, if I'm not mistaken. albertlanier.substack.com. In any event, I'm at Substack. I also have a blog at medium.com. I've written that for about 4 years. So you can go and check out my blog medium.com/@thedoctor50. That's medium.com/@thedoctor50.
All right, and he's also on Twitter too.
And I think the last thing I did there was my anniversary.
Something was going on. I don't know what happened, but it looks like Al got kicked out from talking too much about the Bilderbergs. And before they kick us out, I'm gonna get on out of here. But I do want to mention everyone. And I don't know if Al is gonna. Yeah, he's trying to come back in. But go to our website, Naughty Creoles Blends, Naughty's Creole Blends.com. That is the seasoning for our spice company there. It looks like Al is back. The Bilderbergs got you.
Maybe. That never happened to me before when I was on a show. When I have done YouTube interviews, never had anything like that happen.
Wow.
So, it's funny. Weird. I got to say this. I'm not a conspiracy. I have to be honest. I've studied conspiracies, in terms of an intellectual hobby, as I mentioned before. But I am technically not a conspiracy theorist. So I'm just somebody who has studied them out of curiosity. I was actually interviewed about something called about the Inslaw affair and the octopus, relating, and also the death of a reporter, a freelance writer known as Danny Casolaro. And so when I was on a show several years ago discussing this, I got knocked off the air. And I think it's still on there. It was a show called Ocelli Effect. And I think it's still on YouTube. People can go check it out, and they can hear the time I got knocked off or something happened. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what, but I was knocked off the air for a few minutes. I got back on, but this instance is, and so I don't know what happened, and I'm not going to speculate because I don't speculate on things like that. But just like this was kind of weird because I'm sitting here just looking into my camera here, and all of a sudden I'm off, and that never happened. And I've been on panels on YouTube. I've had all kinds of things, so I've been on YouTube panels and discussions, and never had anything like that happen. So it was very odd, very strange.
Yeah, this is the website here. Everybody can go to.
So I hate to bring that up, but I'm sitting here. I'm not even touching anything or looking at anything, and that just got cut off. Never happened before. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, it's been janky since I've been interviewing you because the sound for me on my end has been in and out. I can't answer for everyone else, but sometimes, especially when we're lagging and so forth, it gets difficult for me to hear what you're saying. But we're glad you're back there. Yeah, what you're about to say?
So it may be a technical aspect.
Perhaps.
Maybe technical, because you're saying it's kind of jinky. Have you had problems on other shows recently?
I have had problems in the past. They say it will be my internet connection, but the internet connection I've upgraded about well over a month ago. So I can see I got all my bars are measured here, so I don't know what's wrong with that. Even when I have an extension, I got all 3 bars, and maybe that might be. I don't know if it has something to do with that, perhaps, but
it may be. That's what I'm thinking. I have something to do with it because it struck me as well, yeah, they're probably Aboriginal is probably referring to maybe the showdown. They may not be referring to this, but actually, Alex Jones tried talking to David Gergen in one of his documentaries, and David Gergen got really mad with Alex Jones when they were talking about Bohemian Grove. And it's interesting. Gergen had said you were allowed in, or something along that line. So that's why I say I think they knew that Alex was there. They must have known. As for Gergen's connection to Bohemian Grove, I don't know whether he's a member or not, and I don't know whether he was a guest or not, but it's very clear he was either a member or a guest. So he was aware of it. And again, it's like any of these secret societies, Chatham House rules, you're not supposed to talk about it. Skull and Bones, you're definitely not supposed to talk about. Mum's the word with that group. And the others, you don't talk about what goes on there. Bohemian Grove, you don't. And Bilderberg, you certainly don't. You do not.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, okay. Anybody has any other questions? I don't know if anyone else has said anything yet, but it looks like that's about it. Well, Al, I appreciate it, and thank you all. Yeah. Thank you for coming on. This is one part.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's one part of our doubleheader because later tonight at 8:30, I will be having Nicole from Nicole's View come on. We're going to be talking about Little Nas X and a few other things that she's had to deal with. So, guys, you all don't want to miss it. Gergen is from Massachusetts. Yeah, I believe so. I think he has worked with the Bush family, if I'm not mistaken, in some way, shape, or form. He's
been an advisor for a number of presidents.
Well, yeah, he's one of those that have worked both sides. He's a former White House assistant, so he worked under Nixon. He's worked under for Reagan. He's worked for Clinton. So yeah, and Bush
Clinton.
was. Let's not forget, George Bush was actually was Ronald Reagan's vice president before he was president. And he was an advisor to
Yeah,
George
Nixon, as I mentioned before, Nixon was vice president before he was president.
Right.
But before they, whoever they are, kick me off this, I just want to thank you. And thank you for having me on to discuss secret societies. Before, and let's hope that this doesn't become the target of secret societies, if you know what I mean. So let me get out of here before I get kicked off by whoever they are. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all in the chat who are watching and those watching elsewhere. Thank you, folks. Good night.
Good night, Al. Thank you. Good night and good luck. And guys, tune in 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, please, for me and Nicole's view. You don't want to miss that. And we will be back, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, until then, this has been Gavin Richard with Gavin Richard Presents with our first part of our doubleheader down. This is Random Topic Tuesdays, the hottest live stream on Tuesdays. I'll holla in a few hours. Peace.